The wrench slipped from my oil-stained fingers and clattered against the concrete floor of the garage. The sound echoed in the silence like a gunshot. I was lying under my Ford pickup truck, trying to loosen a stubborn oil pan bolt. At that moment, voices drifted in through the open kitchen window. "He's ballast, Martha. Completely useless cargo." It was Veronica's voice, as always sharp and biting. My wife's sister had perfected the art of turning every word into a personal insult. I froze under the truck, my heart suddenly pounding against my ribs. The speakerphone was on full volume, so I could hear every poisonous word clearly. "I know, but Jack has worked at the company for 12 years, Martha replied. There was that same cold detachment in her tone that had seeped into our marriage over the past 2 years. From the outside, it might look, "To hell with how it looks," Veronica interrupted. "You're the chief technical officer now. You have real power. Use it. Fire him tomorrow morning in front of everyone. Let him beg for scraps." The wrench in my hand suddenly felt heavy. Jack Brennan, operations manager at Edgewater Tech Solutions, husband of the newly appointed CTO, father of 2 children, and apparently, in my sister-in-law the CEO's opinion, ballast to be disposed of. "In front of the whole staff?" Martha asked. In her voice, I caught not hesitation, but excitement. "Make it memorable. Show everyone what happens to those who don't bring value. It will perfectly cement your authority." I closed my eyes and tried to steady my breathing. 12 years. I started as a junior technician when the firm was just an ambitious startup in a converted warehouse. Worked nights and weekends, missed family dinners and vacations to keep the servers running and the systems online. I was there when the first big contract was signed, when the company went public, and when it moved into a gleaming downtown headquarters. And now my own wife planned to destroy me for sport. "What about the children?" Martha inquired. "Amelia's tuition is due next month, and Ross still has 2 years left at state college. That's his problem now, isn't it? Maybe it will make him find a job more suited to his skill level." They both laughed. Actually laughed, as if the prospect of my homelessness was the funniest joke of the week. I crawled out from under the truck and sat on the cold floor, looking at my greasy hands. Through the kitchen window, I saw Martha pacing back and forth. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, even at 9 in the evening, and her designer jacket looked immaculate after a workday. She looked nothing like the woman I had married 18 years ago, that ambitious but warm computer science graduate who used to steal my hoodies and fall asleep on my shoulder during late-night movie marathons. "There's something else," Veronica continued in a conspiratorial whisper. "Brad thinks it would be better if Jack just disappeared from the picture entirely." Brad. My blood turned to ice water. Brad Morrison, the golden boy, vice president of strategic development with a perfect smile, a Tesla, and a lake house up north. The man who had been staying late with my wife every evening for the past 6 months. "Brad's right," Martha said quietly. "It's better that way." I leaned my back against the workbench, feeling as if I had been punched in the gut. 20 years of marriage, 2 children, a mortgage, a life built brick by brick. And she wanted me to just vanish so she could play house with some IT guy who probably couldn't even change a tire. "So it's settled. Tomorrow morning, first thing." "Tomorrow morning," Martha confirmed. "I'll have security escort him out. I'll make sure he doesn't take anything belonging to the firm." "Excellent. And Martha, change the locks on the house tonight. We don't need any unpleasant surprises." The conversation ended, and I heard Martha's heels clicking across the kitchen floor. I remained motionless in the garage among my tools and high school wrestling trophies. I listened to my wife humming cheerfully as she moved through the house, planning my execution. My phone buzzed with a message. It was Ralph Kowalski, my best friend since high school and the owner of the Riverside boxing gym. "Beer tomorrow night? You look like you could use one." I stared at the screen for a long time, then typed back. "I might be unemployed by then. Let's do another time." "What happened?" I started typing an explanation, erased it, started again. How do you explain that your entire life is about to collapse because your wife decided you weren't worth the trouble anymore? Long story. I'll call you tomorrow. I put the phone down and looked around. The garage was my sanctuary, the only place in the house that still belonged to me. Tools hung neatly on pegboards, sorted by size. Wrestling trophies sat on shelves, dusty but still gleaming under the fluorescent light. Photos of me with the kids on camping trips, fishing, building tree houses. A whole life's worth of memories that apparently meant nothing to the woman I had loved since college. Through the window, I saw Martha pour herself a glass of wine and settle onto the couch with her laptop, probably texting Brad, discussing tomorrow's spectacle. I wondered how long they had been planning this. How long I had walked around like an idiot, thinking our marriage was worth saving. The door from the house to the garage opened, and Martha appeared in the doorway. She looked annoyed, as if I was bothering her with my presence. "You're making too much noise out here," she said. "I'm trying to work." "Sorry," I replied, not getting up. "Just changing the oil." She wrinkled her nose at the smell of grease. "Try to keep it down. Some of us have important meetings tomorrow." "I don't doubt it." She stared at my face, and I wondered if she could see that I knew everything, that I understood what was coming. But her expression remained cold and neutral, as if she was looking at a stranger. "Don't stay up too late," she said finally. "You have work tomorrow, too." She closed the door, leaving me alone with the smell of oil and the weight of betrayal. I picked up the wrench and went back under the truck. Might as well finish the job. After tomorrow, I would probably have plenty of time for vehicle maintenance. As I worked, I thought about wolves. In high school biology, they taught us about pack dynamics, about how hierarchy is established through dominance and submission. Alpha wolves get the best food and territory. Omegas make do with scraps if they're lucky. I had been an omega for too long, taking crumbs and convincing myself it was enough. But even omegas have teeth. And tomorrow, Martha and Veronica would find out just how sharp mine could be. The headquarters of Edgewater Tech Solutions gleamed in the morning sun like a monument to corporate ambition. Glass, steel, and sharp angles. The building looked nothing like the warehouse where I had started. I pulled into my usual spot, noticing Veronica's black BMW, Martha's silver Lexus, and Brad's garish red Tesla. The execution committee was already assembled. I sat in my truck for a moment, watching employees file in through the main entrance. Most of them I had worked with for years. Sarah from accounting, who always brought homemade cookies. Mike from IT, who had helped me set up the server room from scratch. Jennifer from HR, who processed my vacation requests and listened to complaints about the broken air conditioner. They had no idea they were about to witness a public execution. A text came in from Ralph. "Coffee later? You sounded weird yesterday." I replied. I might be free earlier than planned. The lobby was buzzing with the usual morning activity. Lisa, the receptionist, smiled and waved at me, as she had done for the past 5 years. "Good morning, Jack. How's your truck?" "Running like a clock, Lisa. Thanks for asking." She didn't know she was talking to a dead man walking. I took the elevator to the 3rd floor, where operations was located. My office was crammed with work orders, manuals, and pictures of the kids. No sooner had I sat down than my computer pinged with an email. "All staff meeting in the main conference room. Mandatory attendance, 9 o'clock sharp." The email was from Veronica's assistant, marked high importance. They wanted to make sure everyone saw the show. I leaned back in my chair and took one last look around my office. 12 years of my life fit in this space. Manuals I had written, system diagrams, thank you notes from clients. On my desk sat a photo from our 10th wedding anniversary. We were both smiling, her head resting on my shoulder. I turned the frame face down and headed for the meeting room. The conference room was packed, nearly 60 people. Veronica stood at the front in a severe black suit, looking like a corporate executioner. Martha sat at the table with the other executives, her expression neutral. Brad was there too, lounging in a chair with that smug grin. "Thank you for coming," Veronica began. Her voice carried easily across the room. "As you know, our company is entering a new phase of growth. This requires difficult decisions regarding the organizational structure." Here we go, I thought. Corporate jargon designed to turn my destruction into a business strategy. Effective immediately, we are implementing new efficiency protocols. This means that some positions will be eliminated, and employees will transition to new opportunities outside the company. She paused dramatically, scanning the room until her eyes found me at the back wall. "Jack Brennan, please come forward." Silence fell over the room. 60 pairs of eyes stared at me. I saw confusion on some faces and sympathy on others. A few people looked away. I stopped in front of Veronica's podium. "Jack, your employment with Edgewater Tech Solutions is terminated immediately. Please surrender your access card, work phone, and any other company property. Security will escort you to your office to collect your personal belongings. You have 5 minutes. The silence was deafening. The hum of the air conditioner and the noise of traffic outside were the only sounds. Martha stared at her hands, avoiding my gaze. I took out my access card and placed it on the podium. I set my phone down next to it. "Thank you, ma'am," I said, loudly enough. I've always wanted to try being unemployed. I hear it's relaxing. People in the crowd stirred. Veronica's smile flickered. "Anything else?" I asked politely. "That will be all, Mr. Brennan. Security. Actually, there is one more thing." I turned to face my former colleagues. They were good, hard-working people. "I want you all to know," I said, raising my voice. "It has been an honor working with every one of you. You are the best team, and this company is lucky to have you. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." Mike from IT was the first to start clapping. Slowly, others joined in. Within seconds, half the room was applauding, anger and solidarity written on their faces. Veronica's face flushed crimson. "Enough!" she snapped. "Security, please escort Mr. Brennan out." But before the security guards could move, something unexpected happened. Mike from IT stood up from his chair. "I quit," he said loudly. Next, Sarah from accounting stood up. "I'm leaving too." One by one, 15 employees rose and headed for the exit. Engineers, technicians, administrative staff, people who had worked with me for years and knew exactly what kind of man I was. They silently filed out of the conference room, leaving their stunned executives behind. Veronica's face changed from red to purple. "Anyone else who wants to throw their career away can leave," she shouted. No one else moved, but the damage was done. 15 valuable employees, including the company's most experienced engineers, had just walked out of the building. Ms. Haynes, the legal director, was frantically whispering something in Veronica's ear, pale with panic. "Call a lawyer," I heard her whisper. "Call a lawyer right now." I smiled and headed for the doors. "Everyone have a great day." The guards escorted me to my office, where I packed my personal belongings into a cardboard box. Pictures of the kids, a coffee mug, a few books, a small cactus that Amelia had given me for Father's Day. Everything fit into one small box. 12 years of my professional life reduced to a few keepsakes. As I passed through the lobby for the last time, Lisa, the receptionist, looked up from her desk. There were tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Jack. This isn't fair." "It's okay, Lisa. Sometimes the trash takes itself out." I walked out of the Edgewater Tech Solutions office and onto the parking lot, where 15 former colleagues were waiting by my truck. Mike stepped forward and shook my hand. "That was total bullshit, Jack. Absolute absurdity." "I appreciate the support, Mike, but you shouldn't have done this." "Yes, we should have," Sarah interjected. "We've all been watching what's been happening here. Favoritism, intrigue, the way they treat decent people. Someone had to take a stand. So, what are you all going to do now?" Mike grinned. "Funny you should ask. We've been discussing starting our own consulting firm. Want to be a partner?" I looked at these people, at the friends who had just sacrificed their stability to support me, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years: hope. "Give me some time to think about it," I replied. "I have some personal matters to sort out first." As I drove out of the lot, I noticed Veronica at the conference room window. Her face was contorted with rage. Martha stood next to her, finally looking up from her hands. Even from a distance, I could see the shock on her face. Nothing had gone according to their script. When I pulled onto Main Street, my phone rang. It was Ralph. "My God, Jack, I just heard what happened. Mike called me. Are you okay?" "I'm better than okay, Ralph. I'm free." "Where are you? I'm coming to get you." "I'm heading home. I need to see what surprises are waiting for me there." "Jack, listen, don't do anything stupid. Whatever you're thinking." "I'm not thinking anything, Ralph. I'm just driving to my wife's house." I hung up and turned onto Maple Street, where I had lived for the past 8 years. It was a nice neighborhood with quiet, tree-lined streets, full of families and manicured lawns, the embodiment of the suburban American dream. I pulled into the driveway and immediately noticed something was wrong. The key didn't fit the front door lock. They had actually done it, changed the locks. I walked around the house and saw Martha through the kitchen window. She was pacing back and forth with her phone, gesturing wildly with her free hand, probably talking to Veronica, trying to understand how their perfect plan could have gone so wrong. My clothes were scattered across the backyard like confetti. Shirts, pants, underwear, socks, all of it hastily thrown out of the bedroom window. My laptop bag lay on top of the pile, along with my razor and a couple of books from the nightstand. I gathered my things and loaded them into the truck, taking my time so Martha could see me through the window. When I was done, I walked to the back door and knocked. She opened it but didn't invite me in. We stood looking at each other through the screen door, husband and wife, now strangers. "I suppose this is where I'm supposed to start begging," I said. "Jack, Save it, Martha. I heard you and Veronica last night. Every single word. The talk about Ballast, the public humiliation, and the part where I'm supposed to disappear so you and Brad can play house." Her face went pale. "You were eavesdropping." "I was working in the garage, you know, that place where I fix things, where I've been making repairs for our entire marriage while you were busy tearing everything down. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. The question is, what happens now?" She squared her shoulders, and I saw a glimpse of the old Martha, the one who used to fight for what she wanted. "You're leaving now, Jack. We're both moving on. This marriage fell apart years ago. We just didn't want to admit it. Speak for yourself. When was the last time we had a real conversation? When did we last laugh together, were close, or even sat at the same table for dinner? We've been living like roommates for years, and not very good ones at that." She was right, but it didn't hurt any less. What about the children? They'll adjust. Kids adapt quickly. What about the house? My lawyer will be in touch. Of course, she already had a lawyer. She had probably hired him before she changed the locks, threw my things on the lawn, or planned my public execution. I'll need to get the rest of my stuff. Make an appointment with my lawyer. We'll arrange supervised visits. Supervised visits to my own house to get my own things. "Anything else?" she asked, as if I were an annoying door-to-door salesman. I looked at her, in her designer clothes, in the kitchen of the house we had bought together, surrounded by furniture we had chosen as a couple, and photos from our shared trips. I realized I was looking at a stranger. "Yes," I replied. "There is one more thing. You and Veronica made a mistake today." "What mistake is that?" "You forgot that wolves hunt in packs, and you just scattered mine." I turned and walked back to my truck. As I drove away, I could see her in the rearview mirror, still standing in the doorway, watching me go. My phone was blowing up with messages. Mike, Sarah, Ralph, even my son Ross calling from college. In a town like Edgewater, news traveled fast. But one message caught my attention. It was from my neighbor, Mrs. Blount, the biggest gossip within a 6-block radius. "Jack, I saw what happened to your things. I also saw that red Tesla in your driveway last night while you were gone. I have video if you need it." I smiled and typed back, "Save everything. I might need it soon." The war was just beginning. Ralph's gym was in the old industrial district of Edgewater, like a monument to working-class perseverance. Riverside boxing had stood here for 30 years, surviving 3 economic recessions, urban renewal projects, and the general decline of Midwestern manufacturing. It smelled of sweat, leather, and determination. It was the only semblance of a refuge I had left. I found Ralph in his office, a cramped room with a view of the main floor, where a few fighters were working the heavy bags. He looked up from his paperwork when I knocked, his weathered face creased with concern. "You look like hell, Jack." "I feel worse." He poured 2 cups of coffee from an old percolator and gestured for me to sit. Ralph had spent 20 years on the police force before buying the gym, and he still had that calm, assessing way of looking at people that made them want to confess. "Talk to me. Tell me everything." I laid it all out for him. The overheard conversation, the public firing, the changed locks, the clothes on the lawn. Ralph listened without interrupting, and with every detail, his face grew darker. "What a piece of work," he said when I finished. "Your own wife, ex-wife, I should say. She's already got a lawyer, apparently. What are you going to do?" "Honestly, I don't know. Find a place to live, I guess. Figure out how to pay for Amelia's tuition without a job. Try to salvage some dignity from this mess." Ralph leaned back in his chair and studied me for a long time. Remember what I told you in high school when the bigger wrestlers were beating you up? Fight dirty or go home and cry. Right. And what did you do? I smiled despite myself. I fought dirty and won the state championship my senior year, if I remember correctly. Sometimes life puts you in situations where playing by the rules just gets you hurt. Sometimes you have to be willing to get your hands dirty. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you realize that your wife and her sister declared war on you. They publicly humiliated you, destroyed your career, and threw you out of your own home. The question is, are you going to lie down and take it, or are you going to fight back? Before I could answer, my phone rang. It was Amelia from her dorm at Northwestern. Dad, what the hell is going on? Mom called and said you got fired, and now social media is full of posts about your breakup. I don't understand anything. Calm down, honey. Take a deep breath. Is it true? They really fired you in front of everyone? It's true. Why? What did you do? That question hit me like a punch to the gut. My own daughter's first assumption was that I was at fault. I didn't do anything, Amelia. Sometimes these things happen. That's bullshit, Dad. Companies don't fire people without cause, especially not like that. What are you hiding from me? I looked at Ralph, who was listening to my side of the conversation with growing concern. Your mother and I have been having problems. It's complicated. Problems? What kind of problems? And why is everyone at school sharing the video of your firing? Do you have any idea how embarrassed I am? A video. Someone posted it on TikTok. It has about 50,000 views. Something like local guy gets destroyed at work. My roommate showed me. I felt the blood drain from my face. Someone had recorded my public execution and turned it into entertainment for social media. My humiliation had become viral content for teenagers to laugh at. Dad, you still there? I'm here, honey. Look, I don't know what's going on between you and Mom, but you need to fix it. My tuition payment is due next week. I can't lose my financial aid just because you two are having a midlife crisis. I'll figure something out. You'd better. I'm not dropping out of college because you couldn't keep your job. She hung up without saying goodbye. I stared at my phone, feeling as if I had been slapped. Tough call? Ralph asked. My daughter thinks I'm the family disgrace. Apparently, my firing is a hit on social media. Ralph took out his phone and scrolled for a few minutes. His face grew darker. Found it. Edgewater Tech employee fired in style. Posted by someone named Breakroom Bait. Already 60,000 views. He turned the screen toward me. I saw myself standing in front of Veronica. On the video, I was handing over my pass and phone. The camera caught my sarcastic remark about unemployment benefits, the applause from my colleagues, and our mass exit. The comment section was a war zone. Some called me a hero, others a loser. At least some people are on your side, Ralph offered. Great. I'm a viral meme. That'll look great on my resume. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the video. You're better off without that nasty piece of work. Friend. Another followed. Your wife is hot. Is she single now? Asking for a friend. And another. Karma's a bitch, loser. Maybe learn a useful skill? Oh, for God's sake, I muttered, turning the device off. This is a nightmare. Ralph stood up and walked to the window overlooking the training floor. You know what your problem is, Jack? You're still thinking like a victim. Like this is just some misfortune that befell you, rather than a deliberate act against you. What's the difference? Victims feel sorry for themselves. Warriors make plans. I'm not a warrior, Ralph. I'm a middle-aged operations manager whose wife left him for a younger man. I'm exactly what the comments say I am. A loser. Ralph spun around, his eyes flashing with anger. Bullshit. You know what I see when I look at you? I see a man who built an entire department from scratch. A man who trained dozens of employees and earned their loyalty. A man for whom 15 people quit their jobs because they believed in him. That's not a loser, Jack. That's a leader. A leader with no job and no home. A leader who was underestimated by his enemies. Do you have any idea what an advantage that is? I looked at him skeptically. Think about it, Ralph continued. Your wife and her sister think they've destroyed you. They think you'll crawl away to lick your wounds while they celebrate their victory. They're not expecting a fight. And how am I supposed to fight? I don't have Brad's money or Veronica's corporate connections. I can't undo what they did. You can't undo it, but you can pay them back with interest. Listen to me. These people destroyed your reputation, your career, your marriage, and your relationship with your daughter. They did it publicly and humiliatingly. They're probably laughing about it right now. Don't you think they deserve a little payback? I thought of Martha standing in the kitchen doorway, telling me to make an appointment with her lawyer to get my own things. I thought of Veronica's smug smile as she fired me in front of 60 people. I thought of Brad, probably already moving his things into my bedroom, while my side of the bed was still warm. What do you have in mind? Ralph smiled, and for the first time in 24 hours, I stopped feeling completely helpless. First, you need a place to live. There's an apartment above the gym. Nothing fancy, but it's got a bed and a shower. You can crash there until you figure out your next move. I can't afford that. It's free. Consider it a friendly gesture, and don't argue. Now, let's talk about gathering evidence. You said the neighbor has video of Brad's car at your house. Mrs. Blount. Her cameras cover half the neighborhood. Perfect. Get copies of all the footage. Times, dates, license plates. Build a timeline of their affair. What's the point? Infidelity isn't a crime. No, but it can matter in a divorce, especially if you can prove it started while they were working together. Companies don't like scandals involving office romances, especially when management is involved. I felt a faint spark of hope. You think they could get in trouble at work? Trust me, people in high places are very vulnerable when their dirty laundry is aired in public. My phone buzzed again. A text from Ross, my son at college. Dad, just watch the video. I'm driving home tonight. We need to talk. I showed the text to Ralph. Good, he nodded. You need allies, and it sounds like your son is on your side. What if this backfires? What if I only make things worse? Worse than what? You've already lost your job, your wife, your home, and your dignity. Your reputation has been trampled, and you've become an internet joke. How much worse can it get? He was right. I was already at rock bottom. The only way left was up. Besides, Ralph added, here's something you need to understand about people like your wife and her sister. They're bullies. They pick on people they think are weak and won't fight back. But bullies have a weakness. What's that? They know how to attack, but they don't know how to take a hit. When someone hits them back, and hits them harder than they hit, they crumble. I remembered Veronica's face when 15 employees walked out of the conference room. The panic in her eyes when Ms. Haynes started talking about lawyers. Maybe Ralph was right. Maybe they weren't as invincible as they seemed. So, what's the plan? The plan, Ralph grinned, is to remind your wife and her sister that they're not the only ones who can play dirty. We're going to show them what happens when you corner a wolf. I thought I was the omega of this pack. Not anymore, Jack. Not anymore. Sitting in the cramped office above the boxing gym, listening to the sounds of fighters training, I felt something new. I felt dangerous. Martha and Veronica had made a fatal mistake. They thought I would go quietly, accept their version of events, and fade into obscurity. They forgot that I had been a wrestler. I knew how to fight when the odds were against me, and how to win when everyone expected me to lose. Soon, they would be reminded of that. The living quarters above Ralph's gym were a far cry from my suburban house, but they had something my marriage had lacked for years: honesty. Old but comfortable furniture, walls covered in boxing posters, and the lingering smell of leather. There was no room for pretense here. I was unpacking my few belongings when Ross arrived in his old Honda Civic, the one I had helped him buy. He bounded up the stairs and hugged me so hard I nearly lost my balance. At 20, he was already taller than me and built like the football player he had been in high school. Dad, I'm so sorry. I saw the video. It's total bullshit. Watch your language, I replied automatically, then laughed. Although you're right, it is total bullshit. What was Mom thinking? And Aunt Veronica? I always knew she was tough, but this is too much. Your mother was thinking about her career and her future. Apparently, there's no room for me in that future. Ross sat down heavily on the couch. This is insane. You guys were married forever. You were supposed to be the ones who had it all together. Sometimes things fall apart, son. Sometimes you can't fix them. Is it true about her and that guy Brad? I'm afraid so, yes. God, I met him at the company party last year. What a jerk, always talking about his Tesla and his workout routine. Despite everything, I smiled. That sounds like him. So what are you going to do? Are you going to fight for her? I'm going to fight, but not for her. I'm going to fight for myself, for my name, for the right to walk through this town with my head held high. Ross studied my face the way he used to study opponents before a match. You've got something planned. I'm planning to survive. Everything else is just details. My phone rang. It was Mike from IT, one of those who had walked out with me. Jack, we need to talk. All of us together. Can you come to Murphy's bar tonight at 8? What's this about? About revenge. Within legal limits. Murphy's bar was a working-class joint where people drowned their sorrows in drink. Dark wood, dim lighting, and a bartender who knew how to listen. When I arrived, I saw 15 familiar faces gathered around pushed-together tables in the corner. Mike stood up to greet me. Glad you came. We've been thinking. About what? About starting that consulting firm I mentioned, and making Veronica and the board of directors regret yesterday. Sarah raised her glass. To the 15 from Edgewater, may we thrive while our former employers sink. Everyone joined the toast. I sat down and looked at these people, who had risked their stability for their principles. You do realize that after this, none of us will be hired by any other tech company in the region, right? News travels fast. That's the point, said Tom, the lead engineer. Let everyone know we don't work for people who treat decent human beings like garbage. It's about integrity. Integrity doesn't pay the bills. No, but professionalism does. And we're professionals. The question is, are you with us? I looked at them, at the people who had stood up for me when my own wife wouldn't. What exactly are you proposing? Mike pulled out a tablet and opened a presentation. Midwest Technical Solutions, an employee-owned consulting firm, specializing in systems integration and IT infrastructure. We already have 3 potential clients, including 2 direct competitors of Edgewater Tech. How did you move so fast? Turns out, a lot of people in the industry have been watching what's been happening at Edgewater. The favoritism, the intrigue, the way they treat people. Yesterday's incident was the last straw. Sarah leaned forward. Plus, we've been looking into Veronica's management style. Did you know she's gone through 4 HR directors in the last 2 years? No, I didn't. They all quit, citing irreconcilable differences with leadership. That's corporate speak for, the boss is a psychopath. Tom opened another document on his phone. Brad isn't as successful as he likes to pretend. His strategic development initiatives are failing one after another. The board has been covering for him because he's Veronica's pet, but the numbers don't lie. What numbers? Client retention has dropped by 30% since he took over strategy. 3 major contracts were canceled because the clients cited unprofessional behavior from their account manager. I felt that familiar spark of hope again. Are you saying they're vulnerable? We're saying their business is a house of cards, and yesterday's incident might be the wind that knocks it down. Mike closed the tablet and looked at me seriously. Look, Jack, we can start this consulting firm without you. We have the technical skills and the industry connections. But you have something we don't. What's that? Motivation. You have a personal stake in this. You have a reason to make sure we don't just survive, but succeed spectacularly. And if we lose together, not letting them pick us off one by one. I looked around the table again. These people were offering me a lifeline, a chance to rebuild not just my career, but my sense of self-worth. More than that, they were giving me a way to prove that Veronica and Martha had made a fatal mistake. I'm in, I said. Cheers and applause erupted around the table. Sarah raised her glass again. To Midwest Technical Solutions, may our enemies tremble before our superior service. The evening continued, and the conversation turned to practical matters. Tom had learned from his girlfriend, who still worked in Edgewater's accounting department, that the mass exodus had caused serious problems. They had been forced to halt 3 projects because there weren't enough qualified engineers left to handle the workload. Veronica was calling every staffing agency in the region, but no one wanted to work there. The rumors of toxic leadership had spread everywhere. Plus, the The video of my firing had made the rounds in every tech chat room in the state. Veronica herself had become a meme. Hashtag #EdgewaterKaren was trending on social media. I found the tag on my phone. Hundreds of posts mocked her corporate jargon and management style. Someone had even made a compilation video of her worst quotes from staff meetings. My God, I muttered. They're destroying her. Couldn't have happened to a nicer person, Sarah said dryly. Mike leaned closer. There's something else you should know. My girlfriend is still working there, in legal. She says Ms. Haynes has been in meetings with the board of directors all day. They're worried about wrongful termination lawsuits. From me and from all of us. 15 people don't walk out of a meeting together unless something deeply unethical happened. The board is starting to wonder if Veronica's management style is creating legal risks for the company. I felt a cold satisfaction spreading through my chest. Good, let them worry. But that's not all. Brad made serious mistakes on the Morrison Industries account. Without you there to fix his technical errors, the client is furious. Word is, they might cancel the contract. That was the firm's largest client, bringing in nearly $2 million a year. Losing that contract would be a disaster. How do you know this? The CTO of Morrison called me today. He wanted to know if I was interested in doing some consulting. Apparently, he was impressed by our principled stand. The puzzle was coming together. The company was losing talent and clients, facing legal threats, and the people they had thrown away were already building something better. One more thing, Mike lowered his voice. My girlfriend overheard Veronica on the phone with someone from corporate HR. They're planning to blame the mass exodus on you. They're going to claim you orchestrated it out of revenge for being fired. That's ridiculous. I had no idea anyone was going to walk out. We know that, but they need a scapegoat, and you're the perfect candidate. They're drafting a statement alleging you violated your non-disclosure agreement by spreading confidential information that turned employees against the firm. I felt the blood drain from my face. Can they do that? They can try, but it will be hard to prove. Each of us had our own reasons for leaving, and they weren't you. Sarah squeezed my hand. Don't worry, Jack, we've got your back, all of us. Driving back to the gym that night, I thought about the strange turn my life had taken. 24 hours ago, I had been a humiliated, broken man with nothing left to lose. Now I was part of a team, part of a plan that might actually work. My phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Blount. Jack, that red Tesla was at your house again. I have more video if you need it. And your wife was arguing heatedly with a man in a suit. I smiled and replied, save everything. Things are about to get very interesting. Ralph had been right. Martha and Veronica had made a critical mistake. They thought I would go quietly, accept defeat, and disappear. Instead, they had created a dangerous enemy with nothing left to lose but the fight. The war was just beginning, and I was no longer alone. The Edgewater High School class reunion was being held in the same gymnasium where I had won the state wrestling championship 22 years earlier. The decorations had changed, the faces had aged, but the smell of floor wax and youthful ambition remained the same. I had almost talked myself out of going, but Ralph convinced me I needed to be seen, to show that I wasn't hiding from what had happened. I was standing by the punch bowl, exchanging small talk with former classmates who had all seen the video of my firing, when I noticed Martha on the other side of the gym. She looked stunning in a little black dress, with perfect hair and makeup, laughing at something Brad was whispering in her ear. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than my former monthly salary. His arm was possessively around her waist. They looked like the perfect power couple, executives who had risen to the top while everyone else struggled with mortgages and middle management. I watched people gravitate toward them, drawn by the glitter of money and success like moths to a flame. Jack Brennan, what the hell, man? I heard what happened. I turned to see Tommy Martinez, my wrestling teammate from senior year. He had put on weight and lost some hair, but his handshake was still firm. News travels fast. Everyone saw that video. That was cold, firing you like that in front of everyone. It was memorable, I replied. And now I hear you and Martha are splitting up. I'm sorry, man. I always thought you guys were solid. Things change, Tommy. He glanced over at Martha and Brad, then back at me with a mix of sympathy and curiosity. Is it true she's with that pretty boy now? So I'm told. Damn, Jack, that's rough. You holding up okay? Before I could answer, the conversations around us died down. I looked up and saw Brad approaching, with Martha following nervously behind him. "Well, well," Brad said with that arrogance that comes from expensive suits and unearned confidence. "If it isn't the famous Jack Brennan, I saw your performance on social media. Very dramatic." "Brad, Martha," I nodded politely. "Enjoying the reunion?" "Oh, we're having a wonderful time," Brad replied, pulling Martha closer. "It's always interesting to see where people end up. Some peak in high school, others continue to grow." The insult was delivered with a smile, but it stung like a slap. I felt Tommy tense beside me. The people around us went quiet, sensing the conflict. "Interesting perspective," I said calmly, "though I've always noticed that the higher you climb, the harder you fall." Brad's smile flickered. "Is that a threat?" "Just an observation. Physics, you know. Gravity works the same on everyone." Martha stepped forward, trying to defuse the situation. "Jack, maybe we should—" "Should what?" I interrupted, looking her straight in the eye. "Pretend we're civilized adults? Act like what you did was acceptable?" "What I did?" Her voice cracked. "You're the one who couldn't hold on to his job. You're the one who—" "Who what?" "Who worked 60 hours a week to support his family. Who missed dinners and school plays to keep your company's servers running. Who trained half the technical staff that your precious corporation depends on." The gym had gone completely silent. Former classmates watched the drama like it was a theater performance. "You're making a scene," Martha hissed. "I'm making a scene?" I laughed, the sound echoing off the walls. "You fired me in front of 60 people and threw my belongings on the lawn, but I'm the one making a scene." Brad stepped closer, trying to intimidate me with his height and the smell of expensive cologne. "Look, pal, I think you've had enough to drink. Maybe it's time for you to go home." "Home?" I smiled, and something in my expression made him step back. "That's funny, Brad. I don't have a home anymore. My wife gave it to you, remember? Along with everything else." "Jack, please," Martha said, her face reddening with shame. "Not here. Not like this." "Why not here? Why not like this? You didn't care about public humiliation when you were planning my execution. You didn't care about my feelings when you changed the locks and found my replacement." The crowd gasped. Someone was definitely recording this on their phone. Brad's face darkened. "Watch your mouth. You're talking about my girlfriend." "Your girlfriend?" I looked at Martha, who was staring at the floor. "Is that what you are now, Martha? Not a married colleague you're having an affair with? Just a girlfriend?" "We're getting a divorce," she said quietly. "It's over between us. It ended the moment you decided I was ballast, when you and your sister decided to destroy me for sport." I turned to face the gathered crowd, my voice carrying clearly in the silent gym. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce the new power couple of Edgewater Tech Solutions, Martha Brennan, Chief Technical Officer, and Brad Morrison, Vice President of Strategic Development. They're masters of strategy, especially when it comes to getting rid of inconvenient husbands." "Enough!" Brad snarled, stepping toward me with clenched fists. I didn't back down. Instead, I smiled and spread my arms wide, inviting the blow. "Go ahead, Brad. Hit me. Right here in front of everyone. Show them what kind of man you really are. Show my wife exactly what she traded me in for." He drew back his fist, and for a moment I thought he might actually do it. But then he seemed to remember where he was, who was watching, and who was recording. His hand slowly lowered. "You're not worth it," he said. "I agree," I replied. "I'm not worth keeping around. I'm not worth respect or basic human decency. But you know what I am worth, Brad?" I took a step closer, close enough to smell his fear beneath the expensive cologne. "I'm worth remembering, and I'm worth never underestimating. You, Martha, and Veronica made a fatal mistake when you decided to destroy me. You forgot that some people know how to fight back." I looked at Martha one last time. "Enjoy your new life, honey. I hope it's everything you ever wanted." Then I simply walked away, leaving them standing in the middle of the gymnasium, under the stunned gaze of 200 former classmates, frozen in silence. Tommy caught up with me in the parking lot. "My God, Jack, that was intense. And stupid." "I just snapped," I admitted. "Maybe, but it looked cool. You should have seen his face when you called him out. I thought he was going to wet himself." I got into my truck and rolled down the window. "It doesn't matter. They still won. They have the money, the power, the big house, the status. I have a viral video and an apartment above a boxing gym. You have something else, Tommy said. What's that? Their attention. And from what I just saw, they're scared to death. As I drove back to the gym, I thought about Tommy's words. Maybe he was right. I had their attention. The question was, what was I going to do with it? My phone was blowing up with notifications. The altercation at the class reunion was already spreading across social media. The hashtag #EdgewaterDrama was trending, accompanied by dozens of videos from different angles. But one message caught my attention. It was from an unknown number. Saw what happened tonight. We need to talk. There are things about your wife's company that you need to know. Meet me at the diner on Highway 9 tomorrow at noon. Come alone. I stared at the screen for a long time, then typed back, "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. Someone who knows where all the skeletons are buried. I smiled and put my phone away. Martha and Veronica had made another mistake. They had assumed their secrets were safe, that their dirty laundry would never see the light of day. But in a town like Edgewater, secrets have a way of coming out, and I intended to be the one who opened the door. The war was escalating, and now the other side had teeth too. The anonymous tip led me to documents that changed everything. Financial irregularities, misuse of funds, and a paper trail that led straight to Veronica's office. The informant turned out to be Ms. Haynes from the legal department, who had finally had enough of covering for her boss's questionable decisions. She's been stealing from the employee training budget for 2 years, Ms. Haynes explained, over coffee at the Highway 9 diner. The amounts aren't large enough to trigger an automatic audit, but they're more than enough to fund her lifestyle, the lake house, the new BMW, the designer wardrobe. Why are you telling me this? Because what she did to you was wrong, and because I'm tired of being complicit in her corruption. Armed with that information, and the evidence of Brad's incompetence that my team had gathered, I made my final decision. The time for playing defense was over. The Edgewater Tech annual company picnic was being held at Riverside Park, a sprawling green space along the river. The entire staff would be there, along with their families and several key clients. It was the perfect venue for what I had in mind. I arrived early and positioned myself near the main pavilion, where Veronica was scheduled to give her annual State of the Company address. With me were Ralph, Mike, and a few others from our new consulting firm. We looked like just another group of friends enjoying a Saturday afternoon in the park. The crowd gathered around the stage as Veronica stepped up to the microphone. She looked radiant in a white suit that probably cost more than most of her subordinates made in a week. She launched into her prepared remarks about innovation, steady growth, and the company's bright future. That's when I stood up from my seat. "Excuse me," I said loudly, my voice carrying clearly across the crowd. "I have a question." Veronica's smile vanished when she saw me. "I'm sorry, but this presentation is for employees and clients only. I was an employee. In fact, I worked for this company until you fired me in front of 60 people, for no reason other than personal animosity." A murmur went through the crowd. People pulled out their phones and started recording. "Security!" Veronica yelled, but there were no guards in sight. I had made sure of that. "My question concerns financial accountability," I continued, walking toward the stage. "Specifically, I'd like to know why the professional development budget has been cut by 40% over the last 2 years, while executive compensation has increased by the same amount. That's confidential information. That information has already been forwarded to the State Attorney General's office as a report of possible embezzlement." I held up a folder and waved it in the air, along with the documents documenting the systematic misappropriation of company funds for personal use. The crowd went silent, hanging on my every word. I'd also like to ask about the Morrison Industries contract, which was canceled last week because their CEO cited, and I quote, "gross incompetence and unprofessional behavior from your strategic development group." I spotted Brad in the crowd. His face had gone pale with shock. Martha stood next to him, looking as if she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. "And finally," I said, stepping onto the stage, "I'd like to ask about the 15 experienced professionals who chose to leave this company rather than continue working under your toxic leadership. Those people are now working for a competitor that has already poached 3 of your former clients." Veronica tried to regain control. "This is harassment. Someone call the police. The police are already aware, I said calmly. They're very interested in these financial documents, as are the IRS, the Labor Board, and several investigative journalists who have already started asking questions about Edgewater Tech's management practices. I stood at the edge of the stage, facing the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, you deserve better. You deserve leaders who value integrity over politics, competence over cronyism, and employees over executive perks. The crowd erupted in applause. Some cheered, some booed, but no one was indifferent. "My name is Jack Brennan," I shouted. "The so-called Ballast, currently unemployed, but always willing to stand up for what's right." That's when Brad decided to act. He charged the stage, probably hoping to tackle me and play the hero. But I was expecting it. When he lunged, I simply stepped aside and stuck out my foot. Brad flew past me, crashed into the dessert table, and ended up covered in chocolate cake and whipped cream. The spectators roared with laughter as he tried to get up, slipping in the mess he had made. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, "the Strategic Development Group in action." The laughter was deafening. Cameras captured his humiliation from every angle. It was clear the video would go viral within the hour. Martha finally found her voice. "Jack, stop this. You're embarrassing yourself." I looked down at her. At the woman I had loved for 20 years, who had thrown me away like garbage when I became inconvenient. "I'm embarrassing myself?" I laughed. "Martha, I was fired in front of 60 colleagues. My belongings were thrown on the lawn. I became a laughingstock on social media. My capacity for embarrassment is long gone." I turned back to the crowd. "But you know what is embarrassing? What is truly shameful? Betraying the people who trust you, destroying other people's lives for your own gain, trading decency for a promotion." I pointed at Veronica, who was trying to flee the stage in a panic. "That is shameful." I pointed at Brad, still trying to wipe cake off his expensive suit. "That is shameful." Finally, I looked at Martha. "And that is shameful." Silence fell. Everyone waited for my final words. "Every one of you has a choice. You can continue to work for people who see you as disposable and will discard you the moment you become inconvenient. Or you can demand better. You can insist on leadership that respects you, values your contribution, and sees you as human beings, not just line items in a budget." I pulled out my business card and held it over my head. Midwest Technical Solutions is now hiring. Then I stepped off the stage. The crowd parted before me like the Red Sea. People reached out to shake my hand, slap my back, and ask for my contact information. Behind me, I could hear Veronica screaming at the security guards, who had arrived too late to matter. Ralph walked with me to the parking lot. "That was magnificent, Jack. Absolutely brilliant. Do you think it worked?" "Look behind you." I turned and saw at least 30 company employees following us, including several from the management ranks. They were walking away from the corporate picnic, away from Veronica and her toxic management, towards something better. My phone vibrated continuously. The hashtag Edgewater Collapse was trending nationally. The video of Brad falling into the desserts was being shared thousands of times per minute. Local news stations were calling for interviews, but the most important message was from Ross. "Dad, I just saw the video. I'm proud of you. Mom is an idiot." When I reached the parking lot, I took one last look at the chaos I had left behind. Veronica was surrounded by reporters and angry employees. Brad was being led to his car, still covered in chocolate. Martha stood alone by the stage, looking utterly lost and confused. They had wanted to destroy me, to make me disappear so they could continue building their corrupt empire without interference. Instead, they had created their own worst nightmare. An enemy with nothing to lose and everything to gain. The wolf had finally shown his teeth, and his prey had been brought down. 6 months passed. Midwest Technical Solutions grew to 50 employees and became the most successful IT consulting firm in the region. Veronica was fired and was now awaiting trial on federal embezzlement charges. Brad was blacklisted from the tech industry and now sold insurance in another state. Edgewater Tech was sold to a large corporation, and most of its former employees now worked for us. And Martha? She took a job as a junior developer at a small startup in Chicago. She had to start over from the bottom because, after the Edgewater scandal, no one in our region would hire her. I never received an apology from any of them, but I gained something far more valuable. I got justice, I got revenge, and I got the last word.